Stuart Perry, also known as Mr. Stu, is a renowned licensed clinical social worker. With an unwavering dedication to enhancing children's mental health, he serves as a child therapist, keynote speaker, workshop leader, author, and television personality. His expertise and passion make him an invaluable asset in this field. As the founder of Mr. Stu TV, he has created a reliable and accessible resource for parents, teachers, and professionals seeking to empower and educate children about mental health. With his deep understanding of mental health and his commitment to children's well-being, Stuart has quickly become the go-to voice for dismantling stigmas and improving the lives of children nationwide. Stuart Perry is the leading advocate for children's mental health, and his contributions to the field are not only notable, but also crucial to the ongoing discussion surrounding children's mental well-being. Welcome, Stu.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here with you all. It's going to be a great time together today.
Oh, we can't wait.
We are very excited to have you. Very, very excited.
Yeah.
I think a good place to start, and there's so many places that we can actually start, but one thing that you had said to me that kind of just struck me was you said that your philosophy was there are no bad kids. And I just loved that. And I think that'll branch us out into everything else we can talk about today.
Great. Yeah.
But if you can tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, it is. I believe bad kids don't exist. And even at Mr. Stu TV, we have the website, mrstutv.com. If you go to badkidsdon'texist.com, it's the same site.
Oh, great.
We have both. And really, that came from me. I was in a very conservative religious environment. And as a proud gay man in a very conservative religious environment, there came a time where people really started to demonize me and really started to tell me that I could not do anything, and nothing that I had even done up to that point was worth anything. I had volunteered at churches and spoken at churches and spoken at camps and conferences and all these other things, and actually got a letter from someone that said, because I found this out about you, me coming out as gay, not only does that mean you will never be allowed to do ministry ever again, but it negates everything that you have done up to this point. And that hurt. that really, really hurt me. And so I kind of went on a mental crash of just understanding, like, how can these people who say that they're so kind, and let me say also, I actually just worked at a church until last week, this fantastic church, and I found great religious people, so I'm not anti-religion or anything like that, but it really hit me of, like, all of a sudden people can just decide that someone is bad, all of a sudden, and I felt how much that hurt. And then I started to think about, what would I do if I was 8 and was labeled as the bad kid or the bad one, and really crashed in my mind of just like, oh my goodness, am I lovable? Am I deserving of love? If I can't receive love, can I give love? And it really sent me on a spiral. And my thought was, I don't want anyone to ever feel that way, ever at all. And I know in the bio you read, I'm kind of going all over, so feel free to direct me in a specific space if you need. But in the bio that you read, it says that I'm a television personality. I'm actually a professional wrestler with a company called I know, a company called OVW, and there's a show on Netflix called Wrestlers, and I'm on every single episode of Wrestlers on Netflix.
What?
But
that wasn't in your bio.
Well, it says television personality, and nobody asked.
Wow! Oh, that's true.
Wow. And when I wrestle, my name is Amon, the Demon Prince of Hell.
Wait,
because yeah, let's go. Because after I came out, it felt like that's what everybody did to me. It was like demonized, and I was like, you know what? If you're gonna make me into a demon, let me do it. I'll be that. And so I say, like, from my mental crash, it was like this horrible, overwhelming feeling of, can I be loved? Do I deserve love? Can I give love? All of that. And then that paired with like, okay, well, if not, then forget everything. Let me just go do whatever I want, however I want. And it led into some terrible choices. And then again, it came back to me of like, what would I have done if I was 8 or 9 and got labeled as the bad kid? No wonder there seems to be this perpetuating cycle of like labeling a kid, and then somehow, some way, that child just automatically starts to behave in a certain way. It's because of our expectations of them, and it's because of the way that they have been labeled. So what I know is that bad kids don't exist. Misunderstood kids exist, and all behavior is communication.
Oh,
That is,
I love that.
that's what
100%.
I know and believe. I'm a child therapist, and I use play therapy as my main technique. It's actually like the only thing that I do. I love it. But I don't need a child to come in and sit down and tell me everything. I've had children work out their trauma narratives by wrestling a dummy in front of me and pretending to have WWE matches with them. I just had a child last week work through his trauma narrative by building a fort with Legos and showing me all that his brain was thinking about and anticipating every bad thing that could possibly happen. And so he built this fort to make sure that absolutely nothing bad could happen. And as he's building this fort, all these traumatic things that have happened to him start coming up. And he's like, oh, and I've got this so that this doesn't happen. I've got this so that this doesn't happen. It's like that behavior communicated to me. And that's what bad kids, quote unquote, if you're not watching the video version, the fingers, the quote unquote bad kids, they're trying to tell us something. They're trying to tell us, I don't know how to handle this, or I feel really uncomfortable right now, or there's a lot going on at home, or whatever. And if we label that as a bad kid, then what we're saying is, I don't hear or receive your message, and your message doesn't matter. I'm just focused on me and ending whatever it is that is disrupting me. But if we say like, oh my goodness, I see that you're having trouble sitting in class. I see that you're yelling out a lot. I see that you're more argumentative than normal. There must be something going on. That's not a bad kid. That's a situation that they're in, and they're screaming for help without using their words.
Yeah.
So all of that together is why I believe bad kids, why I know, not just believe, I know bad kids don't exist.
Yeah. I love that play therapy, that's a healing modality that you use regularly.
Yeah.
What is happening in that exchange of physical action for a child that allows them to realize positive communication or expression or a process that heals, or at least communicates to you, their therapist? What's happening for them?
Yes, absolutely. I love talking about play and the therapy and why it works. And really what it comes down to, I work mainly with young children, so elementary age and younger. I do have clients up to age 19, and we all do play therapy. Sometimes it's talk play. So maybe it's a conversation, but it's a playful conversation, or I just play off of whatever they're telling me. But play therapy with the actual toys, especially with young kids, the reason that it works is young children don't have access to what's called the prefrontal cortex. That part of their brain isn't online all the way yet until about age 12. So if you're talking to a kid under age 12, and I get this complaint all the time of, I asked them why they did it and they couldn't tell me. Absolutely, they can't. It's not that they don't want to, they literally can't put those pieces together, because that prefrontal cortex is it's the executive function part of the brain. So it ties everything together and really helps with complex problem solving. It helps put all the pieces together. So it can take all the other parts of the brain and synthesize that information. It processes and synthesizes that information. As adults, we do that with our prefrontal cortex. With children, the reason that play works so well is because the part of your brain that deals with touch and taste is one part. It's called the parietal lobe. The part of your brain that deals with sight is the occipital lobe. It's another part. The part of your brain that deals with smells and hearing is another part. It's called the temporal lobe. And then the part that's just regulating you is another part. It's the brainstem and the cerebellum. All of that. Well, as you're playing, what are you doing? You're looking at and touching and smelling. And so it's causing your brain to have to work together. It's manually doing what yours and my prefrontal cortex does for us.
Wow.
So when kids are active, when kids are playing, when they're moving, it's taking all those different pieces and it's saying, oh, all of this is one thing. It's not 10 different things. It's all one because I'm playing with and smelling and sometimes tasting the Lego or the Play-Doh or whatever it might be. All of that is happening all at once. I don't need the prefrontal cortex to do it for me because I'm manually causing my brain to have to work together to achieve one goal. And that's how therapy can work is I see, okay, what are they focused on looking at, touching, smelling, sometimes tasting? Do they take their shoes off? What all is their brain trying to put together? And then I take all that information and I try to make sense of it for their brain.
That is fascinating.
That's so interesting that there's a literal physiological process happening.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take this in a little different topic, but still same topic.
Yeah.
We see kids on iPads, phones at very, very young ages. And what I'm hearing you right now is this sensory play is necessary for brain development. This answers a lot of my questions, right now. If you're putting your kid on a digital iPad right away, they're missing out on a huge portion of neurological development.
That's good.
Yes.
That's a good point, Andrea.
Yeah, all the synapses that are created in the brain, you have to create those. They don't just happen. So if you aren't using it, you will lose it. That's the reality of what I do is if kids are just scrolling, and again, I understand, like sometimes you're taking a road trip, put the kid on the iPad. Like it's going to keep everybody subdued. It's going to be okay. But if that's all they're doing, if they're not playing, they're not forming those synapses. So then their brain can't put those pieces together. Then later in life, either it's harder for them to have that executive functioning, which I think we're seeing right now, the results of a lot of that lack of executive functioning, or they're quickly overwhelmed by any type of experience, which again, I think we're seeing a lot more of just this feeling of just constant overwhelm of, I don't know how to handle it. And it's because you didn't build a tower out of Legos. It's because you didn't take the time to build those synapses and learn to tolerate things at different levels. So now everything feels overwhelming.
Should we pause real quick? Because I'm hearing that. That was great. I wanted to finish this. Are you hearing a static too?
I don't hear any static. I do hear airplanes. Do you hear airplanes?
I heard the airplanes too.
I hear static behind everybody's voice.
I don't hear it behind everybody's voice, but I'm hearing it. Now I'm not hearing it. Do you still hear it, Emmy?
I do. I don't hear it behind mine. I hear it behind both of yours.
Can you hear
Okay, I don't hear that.
Me?
Yeah.
No?
Huh. Okay.
I don't hear it.
Maybe
Okay.
it's just my end.
Okay, I was just hearing a few bits and pieces of static, but I'm not hearing it behind everybody else's. Sorry, Stu.
Okay. No, you're fine.
By the way, this is also fascinating to me.
Good. I love talking. Play, to me, play. I'm so sorry about the planes. We are having Thunder Over Louisville tomorrow. Thunder Over Louisville, it's like the nation's largest fireworks show. And as part of that show, they have the Air Force fly planes, and they are practicing right now. So,
the listeners get a glimpse into the
into the world of Louisville. Yes,
that's
Louisville's
right.
a beautiful place. But I think so many times people think of play as like this joke thing, and there is so much science in the play, and I love using play. And as a matter of fact, I think that's why schools are struggling so much, is because so much of the learning is, hey, let's do this on your iPad. Whereas when I was a kid, it was, hey, here's those geo squares or whatever. Move them around on your table and play with them, and let's make slime in science class or whatever. And now it's, here, watch this YouTube video. Ooh, that was a
Right.
loud one.
Okay.
Here, watch this YouTube video, or here, do this worksheet on Google Docs. Sit there and do on your iPad. And then it's almost like administrators or teachers are surprised. They're like, well, kids love iPads. And it's like, yes, I know they love iPads, but at a certain point, their brain can't do more iPads.
Yeah.
At a
Right.
certain point, like, that's done to them. They need to move. They have to move. It's what creates those synapses. Yeah, I love thinking about it.
Well, I think about when we were kids. You're a little bit younger than us. But when we were kids, we did worksheets, and everybody is like, oh, worksheets. Why do they want to do worksheets?
Mm-hmm.
But we would do worksheets. We would use crayons. We would pick out the different colors. We would, do whatever. We had art where we were creating things. You were using your hands. You were thinking about, you may have been sticking some glue in your mouth. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, but you may have been doing that. But, you had those type of activities at a necessity because we didn't have the iPads and everything. We weren't just sitting there with a pencil on a worksheet. We were actually creating things on a daily basis.
Yeah. And it helps build all those synapses. It makes everything work. The research actually shows that if you are just trying to sit and tell someone something, especially a child, it takes about 400 repetitions for that to actually stick. So yeah, so when parents tell me, like, I've told them 10 times they need to clean up their room, I
You
say,
go
great,
390 more.
yeah, I go, great, you only have 390 left to go. And they get frustrated, but it's 400 times. If you are just wanting someone to sit and listen to you or just give an instruction, 400 times for that to actually stick. If you'll
Wow.
use play, it's between 10 and 20 times. 10 and 20, that's it.
Interesting.
And that, it doesn't mean that it has to be Legos. And I'm not endorsed by Legos or anything, but a toy, it doesn't have to be that you're playing with a toy, but if it is just something playful, if you're just kind about it, or if you're making a joke about it, or if you're willing to jump in and make it playful in some way, it will only take 10 to 20 repetitions because it causes more of the brain to work together all at once. The 400 times is only talking to one part of the brain. Playful is talking to all the parts of the brain all at the same time.
Can you put that into context for something that happens in our house with our kids, talking to a mom and dad who might be listening, and they're trying to take your advice of telling their kid, after you play with your toys, clean up your room? Like, what does that look like in a play context to get it in there fully integrated and the child understands?
Yeah, I love to demonstrate this one. There's some Legos in the lobby of the therapy clinic that I work at, and kids don't have to clean up in my office for certain reasons, but in the lobby, they do have to clean up before they come with me. And parents are always like, good luck trying to get them to clean up those Legos. And I go, hey, just watch and see if this would work for you. And so I challenge them. I say, I bet I can clean up more than you. Let's do it. I bet I can get more than you. And so even that is playful now. Or let's see how many we can pick up in 30 seconds. I've got my timer. Let's go. And then see how many we can get up. Yeah. Or even, can you get all the green ones? Can you get all the green ones? I'll get the yellow. You get the green. Let's go. Boop, boop, boop. Now it's not clean up. It's, hey, we're going to clean up. Let's go. Now, there are some things that need to be directed more serious. You got to choose your battles on those things. Picking up Legos doesn't need to be the most serious part of your day. And so that's one way that you can do it, is really just, your child, what they like, and anything that might be goofy. If you throw that in there, it just takes less for your child to put it all together.
Yeah, I love that. Andrew, is your microphone working?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for checking. I used my hands and I knocked it all off. So, yeah, thank you for checking. Now, I heard a little bit ago, very, very short sentence that you said, and I'm not going to repeat it correctly, but you said something about, when you were talking about behavior is communication. You said that sometimes parents view behavior as something that's happening to them, that's disrupting their life, when the behavior is, considered bad, for lack of a better word. That struck me Because if a parent can reframe that, I think sometimes when parents get frustrated, it's because they're internalizing that bad behavior. They're
Yeah.
personalizing that bad behavior. They're taking it that it's annoying to them. But in reality, we get back to this parenting, or the behavior is a form of communication, and it has nothing to do with you. And it really has nothing to do with the bad behavior. It really has to do with what is that child trying to tell you in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's most of the time not personal, or at least not as personal as
Right.
you take it, or even as the child says. There's times where the kids look at their parents and say, "You're the worst mommy, you're the worst daddy, I want a new one." Right? And what that child is saying right then is, "I don't like what you're doing." That's all.
Mhm.
They're just not good with words. Their prefrontal
Right.
cortex, the word part, hasn't figured itself out yet. So the only way they know how to say "I don't like what you're doing right now" is "I hate everything about you." So it can be easy to internalize that. But what I try to tell parents and teachers and administrators, anybody that I get to talk with, is it's ooh, it's not you versus your child ever, ever. It is never you versus your child. If you are in that mindset, and actually when I train teachers, I say, if you have gotten to this mindset of it's you versus the child, it's time to tap out and go ask somebody else to help. Because you cannot help a child if you have this mindset of you versus the child. It's always you and the child versus whatever is coming at them. So if
Okay.
they're anxious, it's you and the child versus their anxiety. If it's the sadness, it's you and the child versus the sadness. If it's the anger, it's you and the child versus the anger. It's not you versus the child because of this behavior they're showing. It's you and this child because that child doesn't like what's happening either. And
True. Yeah.
I think that's one thing that parents misunderstand is they'll say like, "Oh, they just did that for no reason." Well, no one does anything for no reason, or they just did that to make me mad, or they whatever it might be. And when a child is showing a disruptive behavior, it means that their internal space is chaos. They feel unsafe in that moment, or they feel something big that feels out of control in that moment. And the way I explain it is, imagine that you just your heart starts beating faster and you start breathing faster and your skin gets a little sweaty. Well, you would know either you're anxious or you're stressed, most likely. And so you've got a word for it. So you say, "Oh, I need to calm down. I'm just anxious. I'm stressed," whatever it might be. Well, when a child feels it, they just feel their heart start to beat faster, their breathing get faster, and they're starting to get a little sweaty, and they have no idea why that's happening. Can you imagine how terrifying that is? Like, imagine you go to the doctor and you explain all your symptoms, and the doctor's like, "Huh, I don't have a clue. Sounds like you're just messed up. You're broken." And that's what
Right.
kids are going through all the time is they feel all these things, and it's our job as the adult to be like, "Hey, buddy, I see you're really anxious right now. I know that this is really tough. I'm right here, and we're going to make it through this together." When the child is screaming in the supermarket, "I know that this disappointment feels that you didn't get your WWE action figure." That was me when I was a kid. "I know that it's really hard for you that I had to say no about that action figure, but I am right here and we're going to make it through this together." That is so different from "you better stop doing that right now," because that just builds even more anxiety and that overwhelmed feeling in the child of, now not only do I not know what's going on, but they must not know what's going on either because they didn't say anything about it. And so now it's just chaos in my mind. And so then it escalates even more.
Yeah. I like that acknowledgement and alignment, that you're aligning yourself with your child.
Always, always, it's always you and them versus whatever.
I've got a question on that. This, and I don't know enough about it, but there's this trend going on now about gentle parenting. And there's a part of me that understands that we want to acknowledge and work with the child and teach them. That's our role. But at the same time, and again, I'm not fully versed on this, is that I feel from what I have read that it's not putting boundaries in of what of how you have to act as to fit into society long term, right? Because there's certain
Yeah.
social boundaries that you have to have. Your
Yes.
feelings do need to be acknowledged, but you still need to act in a certain way. Can you address gentle parenting?
Yeah, I don't know much about gentle parenting. There's all kinds of different ones. There's gentle parenting, there's positive parenting. I'm actually trained in what's called nurturing parenting.
Okay.
And they're all very, very similar. Um, if you think of it, so many times when it's not gentle or not positive or not nurturing, it's just stop, no, don't. Stop, no,
Okay.
don't. Stop, no,
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Stop, no, don't. Stop, no, don't. And what nurturing parenting says, and I can't speak to gentle parenting or positive
Okay.
parenting or anything like that, but what nurturing parenting says is that doesn't teach the child what to do. It
Right.
only teaches them what to not do. So it's not don't say no. I say no all the time to kids. And I think that it got skewed of like, oh, well, I can't tell my kid no now. Yes, you
Right.
can and should tell your child no. They are running in the street. No. I have Nerf guns in my office, and I have a service dog who works with me. The rule in my office is you cannot point the Nerf guns at anything that's alive. Now, the reason I say that is because then there will be children who either forget or are testing me and will point the Nerf gun at either myself, themselves, or my service dog, Stark, the best, coolest dog in the entire world. And I'll say, Mr. Stu is not for aiming at, but you can aim at the wrestling dummy. And I think that might be what you're thinking of. I think
Right.
many times people forget the second step of
The
like,
redirecting of behavior.
exactly. It's not don't ever say no. There are a lot of things we need to say no to kids about. But
Right.
we also need to tell them what is the acceptable thing.
Right.
Hey, no, you can't hit me. You can hit the wrestling dummy. I have children that I work with who are very, very, very physically aggressive with their parents. And I teach their parents to say, I'm not for hitting, but let's both go beat up your mattress as hard as we possibly can. Let's go have a fist fight with your mattress. And I've had families who love now fist fighting their mattresses. So it's not, no, don't stop. It's, hey, not this, but I see you need to get that out. So let's find a constructive way to do it. And I think at one point it was way too much, no, don't stop. And now it's too much, do whatever you want. And we've got to balance back out of not this, but this.
Yeah.
Well, and I do love the fact that we're these days teaching our kids about what those emotions are,
Yeah.
and we're acknowledging that they exist.
Yes.
It took me a number of years to acknowledge what those emotions are that I feel instead of, I mean, you feel them physically, right? And
Yeah.
now you've got words for them. And so I love that piece of it. And I love too how you're saying that, okay, what are the alternatives? How can I redirect that behavior? Because they have to live in the construct of societies.
That's right. It's true. But definitely that redirecting piece, it's like, okay, because again, when a child feels something, they don't have that prefrontal cortex. That prefrontal cortex is also very responsible for negotiating and limiting behavior and kind of like the governor of our behavior, of what we do. And so because they don't have that, when a child thinks I need to scream, it's not I want to scream, it's if I don't scream, something bad is going to happen. Or if I don't hit, something bad is going to happen because my brain is telling me to do this and they don't have the part that tells them there's other options. We have to provide those other options for them, and that's what helps create it all.
Emmy, I was just going to say, remember how we always say that they didn't have a what to expect when your kid's growing up book? They really
Yes.
need to have
Yeah.
that.
We do
I
need
mean,
that.
right? Like what to expect when your child is 5, what to expect when your child is 6, what to expect when your child's 18. There's so much going on in the brain development that I think as parents, the more we understood and understand how the brain develops, the more understanding we can be with our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that was new too, Andrea, right? I mean, we grew up thinking you drink a beer and you just lopped off a whole bunch of brain cells.
Right.
All
Yeah.
new science.
And somebody told me recently, they said the first time you do anything, you're going to be bad at it. And then they put it in perspective. They said, your child is a day older every day. So yes, you might have known what to expect with a 5-year-old. Do you know what to expect with a 5-year-old in one day? Because today's your first day parenting them.
Oh,
Do you know
geez.
what to expect with a 5-year-old with 2 days? Because
That
today
would
is
be a
your first day
really
parenting
long
them.
book.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know that we can get that specific. I think it's more about giving yourself grace of like, oh, I screwed that one up.
Mhm.
Okay, let me apologize. I need to show them how to handle mistakes,
Right.
Yeah.
but also I can fix it. It's not, there's very, very, very few things that kids go through that are just like, end it, like end everything. If the child's still going, like we can work through it. And I think parents sometimes think like, I'm going to make a mistake. And it's like, yes, you are going to make so many mistakes,
Right.
so many mistakes. But how do you handle those mistakes when they happen? That's
Right.
the important part.
How do you communicate and how do you recover within the context of your kids? That's a big one to learn.
Absolutely.
Stu, what is your experience when kids get a little older? They have more independence, free will. They have a greater, more extensive vocabulary coming at you. And now they've been raised understanding feelings and emotions and get oftentimes overwhelmed by those. I've seen some of Andrea and I watched some of your videos about anxiety and even depression. How do you approach anxiety today with, let's say, preteen and teens even?
Yeah. Especially, I have teenage clients who come in and they tell me what they have because they saw it on TikTok.
Oh.
So
Yep.
they will tell me, oh, I know I have borderline personality disorder because I saw it on TikTok. And I'm thinking in my head, like, first off, you're not even old enough to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And also, that's a big, tiny, very, very, very small portion of the population is borderline personality disorder. So, and also, if you do have borderline personality disorder, you would not want to like be bragging about having borderline personality disorder. It would be very difficult for you to be going through. So I think part of it is in fashion to have something wrong mentally, mental health oriented. It is in fashion to have some type of disorder or to have something going on. And so anytime something comes up, people will say like, oh, I know, I just have generalized anxiety disorder, or
Yeah.
oh, that's my PTSD, or oh, that's my OCD. OCD
Right.
is one of the, or oh, that's my ADHD.
Yeah.
ADHD and OCD are the two that I hear often. And actually, I've really started to hear, especially with, there's a lot of shows like Love on the Spectrum and things like that, where
Right.
people will say like, I've really started to wonder if I have autism. And I specialize in autism. It's one of the things that I work with the most. I love working with kids with autism, but most of the time it's not a disorder. To be a disorder, there is a specific set of criteria. We use the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that has all these criteria, and it has to be for a certain period of time, and it has to be a certain number of symptoms. It's not just, oh, I checked my door twice, I have OCD. Oh, I couldn't sit still for the 3-hour meeting, I must have ADHD. It's not that, but people kind of want it to be that. They kind of feel like that's in fashion.
Why do you think that is?
I saw a cartoon, and it's one of my favorite. I have no idea where this cartoon is. I have looked for it many, many times. If you can find it, please send it to me. But it was this cartoon, and it was a new employee coming into their boss, and they said, I have anxiety. And the boss said, oh, okay, well, what are you doing to work through that? And the employee said, "Oh, nothing. I just let you know so that you could work around it." And I think that that's the mindset, is like, well, if it's this mental health disorder, then people just have to bend to my whim, bend to my will.
Like an
And I don't,
excuse.
yes, I don't even let my 3-year-olds get away with that. Like, uh, my very young clients, like, I say this helps explain some things. It does not excuse disruptions. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I just start using it to excuse things, then you're going to get away with a whole lot. And one day somebody's not going to let you get away with it anymore.
Mhm.
So I think that part of the chic part of it is like, oh, well, if I have OCD, then people will need to treat me special. Or if I have ADHD, people need to treat me in a certain way. And they'll need to just understand that I forgot that we were supposed to hang out. And it's like, no, that still makes you a bad friend. Like you were, like even if you have legitimate ADHD, if you forget plans with your friends all the time, you're not being a good friend. You've got to figure that out.
Right.
And I think society has shifted some to be very permissive about like, oh, well, you have something wrong, just do whatever. And that doesn't build tolerance. It doesn't build resilience. We have to
Right.
say, hey, I see that this is harder for you and you might need some support. And you're going to need some support for a while or maybe for your whole life. But I'm not going to let you just get away with doing whatever you want because you have this thing. Like, it doesn't define you. Um, like for instance, I have what's called panic disorder. I have a service dog who works with me for panic disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I work a full-time job. I do therapy for people. I've just found ways to work around it with proper supports. I don't
Right.
make excuses. I don't say, oh, well, because of my panic disorder, it's no, I've got to find a way. If it's something I need to do, I've got to find a way to do it. And
Right. I
I
think
think
that's
that's
a
part
big
of the chic part
distinction.
of it.
Not
Yeah.
using a label or a condition or experience to excuse you from doing something, functioning at a
Yeah.
certain level, getting a lot of extra grace sometimes. I don't know, maybe that sounds mean. But I do see that a lot of times people are just so weighed down with the feelings of the feelings that they stop.
Yeah.
They're immobile.
Yep.
Yeah, the excuse. I also think, honestly, once all these stars started coming out and saying, and I think the intention there was pure, like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, I've got, I've got anxiety, I've got OCD, I've got depression or whatever. I think the intention was, hey, if I just let everybody know, then they're going to feel like if they do have it, then they're going to feel like they're validated and it's all okay. And then all of a sudden they're seeing, Selena Gomez. I don't remember what she has, but she has something. And then everybody's like, "Ooh, that's pretty cool. I want to
Yeah.
be like Selena Gomez." And then all the 13-year-olds have whatever Selena Gomez has. It's like, really? No,
Yeah. Or
you
they
don't.
hear Selena talk about like, it was really hard for me to get up in front of the
Right.
20,000 people tonight. And kids are like, it's hard for me to get up in front of my class. And it's like,
Right.
Right.
I get it. Yes, both
Yes.
are anxiety, but one is disruptive to her life. She can't do what she needs to do because of that. So she's got to get some extra support. And one is a feeling and one is a disorder.
So as a
Yeah.
parent, your child is now seeing this stuff on TikTok. They're hearing from their friends. They've now labeled themselves. And you're the parent and you've got to now tell them, break it to them, you know what, you really don't have this. What are some guidance to tell them to not break their heart that they don't have, OCD?
Yeah. Well, definitely. I think if a child is interested in getting help for the thing, help them find the help. And there's all sorts of ways to do that. There's a national hotline now that is just 988, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
Oh,
It's instead of 911, it's 988, and you can call or text that number. And there are mental health professionals waiting to be able to help during times of crisis or times of difficulty where you just need to talk. They can get you connected to long-term resources if that's what you need. But
Never
I
heard that.
yeah, it's a great thing. Um, so I think anytime a child is asking specifically for help, even if it seems totally off, help them get help, because there might be something else going on. I've seen, I had a child come in just the other day, and they were coming in because they were aggressive and fighting all the time. Turns out they were in withdrawal from a medication that they had been on.
Wow.
So it
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
now imagine that the parent was like, you don't have that, you're just being whatever.
Right.
They never would have known, like, you are going through a medical withdrawal. Like, that's
Right.
not safe. Like, we need to get you some help right now. So if a child is asking for help, I think that it's important to let them get help, because also, as the parent, you also are not a diagnosing professional, probably, you know?
Good
Right.
point.
So you don't know for sure that your child doesn't have this thing. And if they're asking for help, they need help. They need something.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Even if they're confused about,
yes,
right.
about what specifically might be going on.
Right.
Or
Right.
it might just be a big feeling. And I've had kids come in and I go, it sounds like it's just a really tough time for you. Let's do, can we just do 6 weeks while you go through this tough thing? And then we'll call it. Like, we don't need to go on for 9 months or whatever. And they know we've got 6 weeks to deal with this tough change or whatever. But I tell parents to look for 3 things in their child to see if it's typical versus atypical behavior. One is any change, a major change. So that can be a change within the child or a change in the child's environment. So if they have just moved away from all these people that they love and care for, or if their best friend just moved away, or if we have a lot of teachers here that have been leaving their positions in classrooms. And so I've had some kids that were devastated that their teacher, who they've grown so close to, left. That's a big change. Or it could be a change within the child. So they used to love this thing, and now they don't want to do it at all. They used to smile, and now they're not smiling very much. So those changes, it could be changes in appetite, changes in weight, big changes. If you see a big change, it's probably an indicator that it's something atypical going on. It's not something that's just normal child development.
So it could be a change in their environment or a change in their behavior actions, like school avoidance. Would that qualify?
Yes, like they used to love going to school, and now they just won't get on the bus.
Got it, yeah.
Whatever change it might be. The second is patterns. So if it's something that you have consistently tried to address, and it just doesn't seem to be changing, either the child's mood, the child's behaviors, whatever thing it might be that you have tried to work with your child and tried to address, but there is just a consistent, predictable pattern that every time A happens, B is going to happen. It's just this pattern over and over and over again. That's atypical. Typically,
Can you give an example of that?
yes. Aggressive behavior at school is one that I see a lot, where it has really, the administrators have tried to address it, the teachers have tried to address it, parents have tried to address it, and even with support, not just yelling at the kid, but really trying to support the child. And it just is this pattern that they just can't seem to not be aggressive, either verbally or physically. Or a pattern of, it could be something a little more simple, like a pattern of the child always completes their homework but never turns it in.
Okay.
That's one that I see pretty often too, where it's finished, it's ready, but they don't turn it in. They miss that final step. It's just this pattern. Are those decent examples?
Yeah. So
I
they're
think so.
fixed in something and not able to make a shift or change too.
Right. Yeah, we've worked on supports the best we know how, and it just doesn't seem to be changing. That's atypical. And then the final is extremes. So that could be extreme aggression. It could be an extreme mood or an extreme reaction to something that seems fairly small. If you see a change, a major change, a consistent pattern, or an extreme, or if you see all 3 of those things, that's atypical. And with the patterns too, I try to say that's like 6 weeks. It's not a week of time. It's not a day where the child was
Right.
consistently off or whatever, but like 6 weeks of time where we have really tried really hard to work on this thing and nothing is changing. Probably need some professional support. If there's those big changes, might need some professional support. If there are big extremes, you might need some professional support. So those changes, patterns, and extremes, I think, are the three best ways that parents can kind of monitor their kids, because parents know their kids better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see those things, you know that something's going on. And then if you try to address it and it just doesn't work and you keep seeing those changes or the patterns or the extremes, then it probably means that professional support is needed. There's probably something deeper that maybe the child can't even express. And I know teenagers have greater vocabulary and stuff. They are just coming online with that prefrontal cortex, so they can't even voice everything that's going on inside or where it might have come from or what all is going on. So all of that together is really important. So if you're monitoring your child and you notice changes, patterns, and extremes, that would be a great indicator that there's probably something deeper going on.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Good.
And
Good.
then if you identify that something's going on, and you alluded to this just before that 1, 2, 3 example, when you talked about giving a child a framework of time, we're going to work on this for this amount of time, whether it was 6 months or something. How would you advise parents to know the appropriate amount of pause, time, working out feelings and experiences? How do we know when to implement scaffolding and parameters and boundaries and know to push and say, okay, now we've been feeling this. Now it's time to get up and do X, Y, or Z, that now I got to get shit done and do my job or go to school.
I gotta go. I gotta go.
Sorry, I just said that.
It's okay. It didn't bother. I'm a professional wrestler. It didn't
I was
bother
just
me at all.
gonna say that. I was going to say, Stu wrestles for a living.
Yeah.
Part of a living, I should say.
I look at it as a lot of times we want clients to get to level 10, right? So if they're starting at 1, we want them to get to 10. And I see a lot of even clinicians forget that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are stops along the way. That I see it a lot, especially with clients who are dealing with depression, where the clinician gets so frustrated because they're like, I know what you need to do. I know it. I know what it is you need to do. Why aren't you just doing the things that I tell you to do? And people with depression, it's not about feeling sad. It's about this constant feeling of being overwhelmed because the brain is not working at the pace it's supposed to. I explain, it's like driving with your e-brake on at all times. So it is really hard to get going. It's not just, oh, I'm sad today. It really feels like I can't do this. It's
right.
an overwhelming feeling, not sadness comes from that overwhelming feeling. Sadness is a symptom. It's not what's actually happening. It's that feeling of overwhelmed.
Good distinction.
So, so I think a lot of times you have to break it down in your head of saying like, okay, they need to get up and go to work. They need a job. Or maybe they need a job. Maybe that's, now that's probably 7, that's like level 7. If they're at 1, first we got to get them to brush their teeth. I've got someone I just consulted with the other day, and they were saying that a client would not brush their teeth. They would brush their teeth once every 10 days because they just didn't feel like they had the energy to get up and brush their teeth. And so I said, well, there's these little things called wisps. They're like these little pre-done toothbrushes. They're for travel. And I said, what if we had them keep some of those on their bedside table, and each day they use a wisp and they can chuck it across the room or whatever they want to do with it. But that way they're getting their teeth brushed every day. Well, then from there, we can say, okay, can you get up once a week and brush your actual teeth? Let's plan it. It's going to be each Friday. You're going to get up and brush your teeth. All the other days, you're going to use your wisp, right? Now, then it's like, okay, can we do Monday and Friday? can you do Monday and Friday, brush your teeth? And if someone is at that extreme level of any mental illness, sometimes it has to be like that, where it's not just, there's going to be days where they can do 8, 9, and 10. There's going to be days where they're at 2, 3, and 4. And again, as a parent, you know your child. So you can kind of see what day are we having today. If your child has a mental health disorder, what kind of day are we having today? And I do need to push them always a little beyond what they think they can do so that I can show them they can do more than they think they can. But I'm not going to ask them to do 10. Today I'm going to settle at 5 because they're actually at 3, but I think I can push them. And with me right there with them, we can get to a 5. It's all about taking those steps rather than saying like, oh, well, here's the end goal. You need a job. Go. That's really hard.
Can't do that.
That's really tough. That's really tough. Yeah.
That's bad. Okay.
So being able to take those steps of saying like, okay, today you're at a 3.
Yeah.
And you can ask your kid, how are you feeling today? I have parents, and that's part of the parents' homework is ask your child 1 to 10, how are they feeling today? And some days they're going to wake up and say, I am at a 3. I just don't know how much I can do. Okay, well, that means we've got these supports for the days that you're feeling like a 3. I know you've got this. You're going to get pushed today. There's going to be times where you're going to really need to use those skills that we've been working on. It's going to be a tough one. I know, but I can't wait to hear about how well you did. Now we're pushing them to keep going beyond.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful and also exhausting.
Yes. It's both.
This is just going to be a comment, but it may lead someplace. You have mentioned twice, you know your child better than anyone else. And then I watched one of your videos, and you said you are the best parent for your child. And I think in today's world, so many parents are so insecure. And we all, not even in today's world, I mean, we were all insecure as parents. But I think one of the messages we need to hear is we do know those kids better than anyone else. Yes, we need to get support, but we also need to trust our own instincts. And we need to know when that child says that they're a 3, when we can push them to be a 3.5, or when we need to say, yeah, they're a 3 today.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That talk, you are exactly the parent your child needs, that one meant a lot to me. I actually don't have children of my own, but I love to encourage parents because you are exactly the parent your child needs. You know them better than anyone else. And yes, you're going to make mistakes, and yes, you're going to mess up big sometimes, but you really do know them best. And those instincts that you have are there for a reason. And I think that is one thing that I am seeing is parents almost feel shame sometimes when they need to come get professional help because there's so much information about mental health.
Yes.
That parents sometimes feel like they're supposed to be able to handle the mental health problems or concerns of their children without help. So then when they need to go get help, they feel like they failed as a parent because now I had to go ask for help with my kid who I'm supposed to know better than anybody else.
Or
but
we feel like
I don't.
Or we feel like it's our fault. Sorry for interrupting.
Yes,
but
yes.
Yeah.
You feel like you're the one who did it, or your genes are the one. I get that all the time working with children with autism. I've had so many parents crying in my office asking me what they did to give their child autism. And the answer is nothing. Your child is amazing and beautiful, and you are just the one they need. They need you. And that is a message that parents need to hear. They need to know, like, you, I get emotional when I think about it. Like, great, we can all get emotional.
I was like, I'm crying too.
But you created this beautiful, amazing being, or you've adopted, or you've taken on this beautiful, amazing thing. You were in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And there is nothing that can compare to that. I have parents who get frustrated because they're like, well, they act way better with you. And I'm like, yeah, but you know them better than I do. I wish I could know them as good as you do. I have no idea some of the things that you know about your child. And I think that that is something that's so important for parents is you are doing the absolute best you know how to do. You are always doing exactly the best you know how to do. Even in situations of horrible, horrible parenting flaws, I believe 99% of those people were doing the best they knew how to do at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So give yourself that grace and then ask for the help when you're lost, when you don't know what you're doing, because that's an instinct too of, oh, I'm lost. I don't know what to do right now. Okay, great. Trust that instinct, get some help, and there's no shame in that. Like, that's why people like me exist. I am a professional for a reason. We need professional help sometimes, and that's important.
Oh, thank you for that
Absolutely.
validation for all the parents and the reminder that they are enough and they're exactly doing the best they can with what they know in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a perfect way to end the interview. Yeah. I do want to ask
Love
one
it.
last thing, which is where they can find you. I'm going to have it in the show notes and everything, but I want you to also say it, and where they can find you even when you're wrestling. Where did you pull that from in the middle of
Yeah,
like,
it was like, okay, this guy used to be a minister and now he's a demon professional wrestler, and like, what in the world is
It's
going
like,
on?
when we said at the very beginning that this might just take us weird places,
Yeah.
that was what was going through my mind. It was like,
That was
man, he's a
awesome.
wrestler. This is
Yeah.
fantastic. Anyway, so let me ask that question, and then we can shut it off, or not shut it off, but you know what I mean. Okay, Stuart, where can these parents find all of your wonderful resources?
Yeah, there's 3 tiers to Mr. Stu TV. We offer mental health fun for kids, mental health resources for parents, and mental health training for professionals. So it's that fun, resources, and training. For the fun, it's mainly on YouTube. So youtube.com/@MrStuTV. You have to add the little @ thing on all
Okay.
YouTube channels. So youtube.com/@MrStuTV. For the resources, there are free resources and free training materials on our website, mrstutv.com. It's MISTERSTUTV.com. And then for training, on the website, you can actually book me. I fly all over the country and train parents and teachers and other mental health professionals on all sorts of different concepts related to mental health. So that's it.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Thank
What a
you.
fun interview. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your spirit and your energy and your insight and using all this to help the world in all those different ways. It's
Well,
beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you
So
so
much
much
fun.
for having me. And just
Wow.
remember, bad kids don't exist. They're
They
Bad
do
kids
not.
do not
it's not real.
exist.
Some things exist, some things don't. Bad kids don't. That's it.
Yeah.